The Go for Growth Show. Powered by Beepo.
All right, hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Go for Growth Show. My name's Mark Engelmann and I'll be your host today. Very happy to welcome Belinda Vesey-Brown today. Welcome, Belinda.
Hi everyone.
So let's get straight into it, Belinda. You own a number of businesses, but I guess you've always kind of played in that design, marketing and brand space. Can you tell me about what a company's brand is and why is it really that important for companies to get right?
Yeah, I guess I've got to clear up the thing that I get asked all the time is what's the difference between a brand and a logo? And actually, it's hard to believe that people don't understand the difference. So let me, if it's okay, Mark, if I can take a few minutes just to explain that.
Yeah.
So a logo is essentially, it's that symbol or that shape that basically identifies you. It's like your badge. So it goes, oh, well, that's Woolworths or that's Coles. Whereas your brand is more about, it's who you are, it's what you stand for, it's how you answer the phone, it's the stories you tell and the way you tell those stories. It's everything, the type of people you employ. And that's what makes a brand. That's what you're actually talking to a neuro-marketing then perspective is that this brand feels right, therefore I'm going to buy it. So you feel it and then you rationalize why then you want to buy it. And that just comes back to a neuro-marketing sense, but really the logo is just the symbol and that the brand is everything else.
Yeah, great. And so what's neuro-marketing?
Oh, I love neuro-marketing. Yeah, no. Neuro-marketing is basically it's buying behavior. So understanding buying behavior. If you think about, let me just give you the idea of home and away. So home and away has been on for, basically as long as you and I have been alive, right? Elf is still going. And you're like, well, why is that show still going? Because it's a show, they need to market it. And what they do really well is that they open a loop in our mind. So at the end of every episode, there's something that doesn't quite get answered in our mind, like who's going to die or what's going to happen with their relationship. And so they open this loop in our mind that then we have to come back tomorrow to find out the answer. And so you can do that in traditional marketing. You can do that in almost anything, even conversation. So I could tell you about something but not give you the answer, Mark, say until the end of this interview. So I could tell you at the end what the best neuro-marketing technique is. You've got to wait.
All right. Well, listeners, you have to wait for the whole interview to finish to get the secret. So, from my point of view, brand ties in pretty closely to a business's overall strategy. If you're working with a business, what's the process you go through to develop their brand?
And this is the bit, how you have a job and you go, I just love my job because I love digging out of people who they are and what they stand for. And I'm talking about it in a business context. So, like we've done a dentist. And so, you would argue that a dentist sells smiles and a lot of people sort of, say that. What are you really selling? Well, we've got this dentist is actually selling now on subscription. So they've actually changed up their business model. So instead of seeing, as waiting for a toothache to come, you actually are proactive around your health. But if you can use technology and science even, your mouth is your window to the rest of your health. And so that is what this brand is now disrupting. They're basically saying, don't just come to us when you have a toothache. Pay on subscription, you know what the cost is, and you come 4 times a year and we're going to use saliva tests and check your gum health and fix all these things. It's actually giving us an insight into how your overall health is. Yeah. You're like, well, sign up for that. And so I love digging out that type of context. We're selling aged care on advocating for our elders. It's incredibly exciting when you really get down into what those businesses are really selling when it's not just their product or service. Yeah. What are they actually providing for people? We've got a government client. They sell this piece of software and it informs government and it goes right up to the top ministerial level where then it says, well, we can now see all the information that's happening in all federally, what's happening in all of the departments that we can then make policy around. Yeah. And that's exciting. And that's what they're really selling. They're not selling the software. They're selling information to inform policy. And when they get that, and that's that moment, when they get that, you're like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So we take them on that journey. And there's some neuromarketing, sure, that's involved in that. And it's very exciting when they understand it because then you can tell the stories. And storytelling's been around since caveman days. Yeah. And if we're telling that story and that brand and how we fit into that, and what we're actually really selling you, then it's easy.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess understanding what you actually do goes hand in hand with understanding who your target market is, right? And then that obviously heavily influences how you should brand and how you want people to perceive what you do.
Yeah, and if you understand that audience and who you're talking to, then you're just telling stories that they understand, that they can really resonate.
Yeah,
and
cool.
it's it's two-way conversation then, and I love it.
Yeah, awesome. And so Brandonian is the name of your brand agency, is that right?
Yes, so Brandonian is our strategy business.
Yep.
So we built a process around that. So we do a workshop, and then we build a context document, and then we start to roll that out in a 90-day plan. And that's where it switches over to my other business, because Mark, you can never have just one business. my second business, which is Brio Group, which is my longest business. I've had that for 17 years. And that's more of tactical marketing. And that's where we take the context, or the who you are, what you stand for, your point of difference. And then we start to tell those stories through a 90-day plan. That's tactical. So these are your 10 touch points, if it's new leads or nurture. And then we start to measure conversion rates and, average dollar sales. And so you start to get a proven recipe, but it's coming from a very tactical position. So businesses can then know, well, I need to dial this up or I need to dial that down. And you're learning more about your audience on the way. And that's exciting too, because what you think human behaviour is doesn't always play out.
Yeah, so, cool.
I love learning about it.
I love the fact that you've got your Brio Group, which is kind of like the marketing tactics, and then you've got the brand, and you've kind of like looking at it from that supply chain point of view. You're kind of starting to lock it down and sort of start to own, a decent whack of that supply chain, which is really, really smart.
But that came about because it was hard to find people that could think strategic and then could also do really well tactically. So that's why we just separated it out. We have a process on the strategic, different team. Like my team actually are marketers, but they also have psychology. So when we're doing an NLP training, so when we do the workshops, it's really interesting how we pull information out. And then we'll get in there the tactical marketing to get the result based on that position. Yeah,
great. And any other businesses?
One more, Mark. One more, TaggedPDF, which is, it sits a little bit away, but still linked from a marketing context, and came about actually through Brio Group, because we were doing a lot of work for Brisbane City Council. And for example, we did their annual report. And then that there's a federal law that's come out. It's quite a number of years old now, but it's all about accessibility. And so you need to meet an accessibility standard. So what that means is that with that annual report that we created, there were some copies that were printed, but most of it was put up, because we're in the digital age, so they put it up on the website, their Brisbane City Council website, and then you download it, and then you want to be able to read it. So imagine if you're someone with low vision, or you're elderly, or maybe you're just an auditory, you learn because you hear things. That document needs to meet the standard, needs to be able to be read out to you. So there's a little bit of programming or coding that needs to go in behind that says, this is a heading, this is a picture of, Lord Mayor, doing blah, blah, blah. This is a table, and so you've got this cell plus this cell equals this cell, and so on. So it basically is a process that enables that document to be read out accurately, so there's no discrimination. You can consume the content, but it's all about communication, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the link with when we saw, well, it's a different skill set that my design guys really didn't want to do. And really needed a bit of a programming background to be able to do it. So if you think about, you've got a 400-page document, it's a little bit repetitive, but yet so crucial that it's very, very accurate.
Yeah.
And so I started a new business on that. No one was really owning that space in Australia. And so we built that up, wrote training, and have been training team. And then I did a partnership deal with Vision Australia. So we're actually setting the standard now in Australia on, how these documents should be remediated. And there's many, many variables on what's best practice. Should you have the headline, then the picture, and then the article, or should you have the headline, and so on. What sort of things should you design? So even writing and designing for accessibility is something that not many people know. So even by default, we're now informing departments and businesses around how to write content that when it's read out makes sense. and how to apply, captions to photos, and even how to distill information into graphs and things like that, just to make it accessible. And there's colours, contrasts, and things like that. So even designing for accessibility fits into what we do in Brio as well. But see, there is a bit of a link. There's a bit of a link.
Yeah.
Very left of field.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. How does that make you feel, having a business that really helps people, have a better life and have better access to information?
I think it's a really interesting business in that it can give back in so many ways. And I think we're at a point where technology is starting to catch up, where we will have the opportunity to have something read out that we've created from a PDF document, say read out in our car in the not too distant future. But we need to think about how we're actually making that content and how that's being able to be read out. But what I've really learned is that the people with low vision, that whole community, never have been catered for in the online space, very well. And so they have this low expectation that, finding a remediated or a tagged PDF that has been enabled to be read out is like a little bit at the moment like finding a needle in a haystack. And so we've actually started a naming convention so that they can find them, so that it's starting to become a lot more inclusive. And they're so humble that they don't even ask for it.
Yeah.
But you take the Commonwealth Games, if you've signed up, you've got your ticket, you want to be able to download that, that agenda and know what's on and where. And what was actually we did this crazy, it was this map of the Gold Coast and had these little dots everywhere about, weightlifting's here and swimming's here and here and here. And, we basically had to write some alt text or some descriptive text that went in behind that, because we could all see it. You could go, well, that's where swimming is. It's on that street. And it's, that's where you park. Well, we had to write text that described all of that. And there's a real art to that succinctly too, because what we know about, human brains and learning is that it can't be too long, because you'll tune out.
Yeah.
But another thing is really interesting, if you see someone with low vision actually utilising one of the documents we've created, they have it, the speed is really quick. It's like, blah, 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 blah. Like we almost couldn't comprehend what's being said, but they can. They've just tuned their senses. It's awesome to watch.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so moving on a little bit, you've got 3 businesses. And when I think about people who might be employed and they might be, looking at going out on their own, starting their own business, that sort of thing, the idea of just quitting their job and starting a business for most people is really overwhelming. And, all of these, it's almost like every excuse under the sun comes out as to why they shouldn't do that. But you've got 3 businesses. How do you make it all work and find time for all the other things in your life?
Yeah, I know. Well, I like business. I like being able to create something. So that's why I potentially went out on my own, is that I had this idea and this vision. So I just gave it a go. What's the worst thing that can happen? I could always get a job.
Yep.
But how do I manage 3 businesses? Well, I think it's important, and this is what I've learned over the many years that I have been in my own business, is that it's important to also have a balance. So why I really love business, and that gives me a lot of energy, so does spending time with my family, so does spending time on my health, and so does spending time with friends. And so it's important to me that I have those areas that are always being activated within a month, that I'm doing something in all. Because then if something's going bad in one area, so if you've got a tragedy in your family, then your business is good. And so you've got these different safe areas that you can go to. So not everything goes, it doesn't become all consuming, because you have these safer areas. I learned that the hard way, because I was very obsessed with business in my early years, and I spent all my time doing that, and I didn't see my friends and I didn't see my family. And then, that was a massive learning for me. So that's definitely a piece of advice, is that when you start your own business, then you can't be all consuming. You need to get balance.
Yeah, totally. And I think the benefit of owning your own business is having that flexibility. You don't have to be in an office 9 to 5.
No.
You can, if you need a break, you can just get up and go and do something else for half an hour or so, and then come back and get stuck into the work again. So yeah, it's good.
No, it's good.
So what's your number one tip for business owners looking to grow their business?
Yeah, I read that you're going to ask me that, Mark, and actually I've been thinking on that.
Yeah.
And what I've written down here is, I think you really need to know why you're different. And this is fundamentally then why I've created my brand strategy business, because I see so many great businesses that they come in here and that they want help with their branding and their marketing, but no one knows about them. And that's because they don't really know who they are and what their main point of difference is against their competitors. Especially if you're playing in, like if I just take mold removal, for example. There's a lot of businesses, that's something that we need to do, generally once a year or, once every few years. And so when you're going and looking for that type of service, you have a perception as to what you'll find. And all of those are basically the same. But what if you stood apart because you knew who you were and what you stood for? And so that really is, I guess, my key insight into what businesses should do is that never compete on price. Really know who you are, and really etch out that point of difference and sell through every touch point on it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And have you used any technology apps or services recently that have really assisted you in saving time or growing and scaling?
Yeah, well, certainly a lot of the work that we do is, done on the computer, if you like. But what I really do love is that you can find somebody who's a specialist in something that you need. We did a little bit of work with Lockyer Valley Council, and they got a lot of tractors out there, 'cause it's a farming community. And we had to put up this little money box for them that was in the shape of a tractor. And so none of my guys had any experience doing that, but we used the world to source somebody who's a specialist in that. And I think that was a great outcome for the client. That was done, quickly and very accurately, because that's what they've specialised in. I think that with the work that we do from a tactical perspective, you can get a lot of team, in offshoring models where they can do work that was never possible before because the hourly rate is low. So you can add a lot of value by data mining, by managing accounts, by looking for influencers, especially in the digital space. That even I still remember this offshore example, which was looking at satellite photos and when calculating where pools could go, and then working up an advertising campaign really targeted to individual houses. So you couldn't afford to do that with Australian labour, but yet you can do that easily by using offshore models, and I think that adds so much value back to your client, and it's something that's one-to-one, right? Which is what we all want and expect now.
Yeah, I heard a similar story about a solar energy company that looked at Google Maps as well and found all the houses that didn't have solar panels on their roof and then hit them up.
With a deal. So we're in the area. We can do this deal. Yeah. And medical was another one. So, just taking, medical practice and even where technology is leading us in that space, but having different opinions in different countries and, getting it almost instantly is amazing.
Yeah, and I think, just looking at the way that the direction that marketing is taking these days and, that whole digital space, it's so resource intensive to create content and, because you have to, if you want to rank high in Google, which is how people are going to find you, you need to create content regularly and keep a healthy website that's continually being updated and with relevant, engaging information, right? And if you're not doing that, then you won't get ranked on Google and no one will be able to find you. So that's super resource intensive. And I know that, I just look at, a lot of staff that use offshore marketing teams to help with that implementation piece and graphic design and, video editing and all that sort of stuff. So
done really well and, really quickly. And it's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Now I've got to close that loop for you, Mark.
Yes, you do.
I've got to give you the one Neuro-marketing that rules them all. Basically, there's lots of little things like opening loops in minds and things like that. But the one that we use, that we love, and we use that for our strategic brand positioning, is called Archetypes. And Archetypes is Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist. He came up with this name, but basically it's a brand personality. So we assign a brand personality to you. So like you could be the hero, for example, Mark. You could be the hero brand. When you think about a hero, right? You know, we have an idea of what that means. It's the knight in shining armor. You're going to be there when I need you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you probably make yourself available to me at different times. And so there's this perception or this understanding that we already have, as Carl Jung said, you're born with, that we just leverage or we use within a marketing context, so that you're actually talking to your subconscious when you're making a buying decision, going, well, I'm sick of all these people never being there when I need them. And yet now this brand is now going to be there. And I really, I want that, because no one's seen that. And so there's 12 different characters. Hero is one, outlaw is another, because you can't have a good guy without the bad guy. The bad guy in our context is a rebel. So they challenge convention, like Apple is a rebel brand.
Yeah.
And, or a caregiver and so on. So it's about anchoring back to this character that underpins everything that you do in your branding. And it's, you know, it's, your competitors can't copy that, and you no longer need to compete on price.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, especially startups that I speak to, they always fall down when it comes to that price part. I think everyone's, not everyone, a lot of people are afraid of charging too much or being seen to charge too much and sort of pricing themselves out of the market. But I think that's a big mistake.
People pay for something if it's you know, or the perception is that it's going to give me something I haven't been able to get before. Correct. Like dentistry on subscription, or you know, aged care that's actually going to advocate for me.
Yeah.
You know,
as long as you communicate the value, so people understand what they're paying for, then and there's the whole saying that if something's free, people aren't going to buy it because they don't see the value in it. So it's an interesting kind of paradoxical kind of conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is actually.
Awesome. Well, Belinda, thanks. That's all the questions I've got today. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
And we'll chat soon.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Thanks everyone for listening.
The Go for Growth Show. Powered by Beepo.